Have you been an Atlantean priest or priestess? Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Sylvia Salo and I help Lightworkers and Starseeds to remember who they are and to step into their purpose. And in this video I want to talk about Atlantis and having the memory or recognition within yourself of being an Atlantean priest or priestess. Although I'll be talking about Atlantis specifically, of course some of you might resonate more with Lemuria, and then some other cultures, but they all stems from Lemuria or Atlantis. During my work, I meet many amazing lightworkers and starseeds, and many of them have been Atlantean priests or priestesses. And those people start to remember who they are, and they start to step into their power and again awakening their sacred DNA, their 12-strand DNA. Since I was little, I could remember Atlantis. I would remember this beautiful place, and I was asking my parents where this place is, and I couldn't wait to go there. I could remember that there was a time that was so different than our time is, and I knew that it will reawaken during our lifetime. I was sure about it. And then I remember when I was like 8 years old and someone said on TV Atlantis, and I was like, wow, this is the place. This is my place I remember. Why Atlantis is so important? The reason is that we are awakening long-lost wisdom and knowledge within ourselves, and this knowledge and wisdom from Atlantis can help us in our ascension journey. Because Atlantean priests and priestesses were the masters of ascension process. They knew how to ascend, and they knew how to work with your crystalline DNA, which is essential for ascension. And they also knew that during our lifetimes we will have access to this knowledge again. The Atlantis will reawaken through us, through the keepers of the sacred knowledge. It wants to be born again. And I guess if you watch this video, there is something that resonates with you about Atlantis or being a priest or priestess. And I invite you to give more space to your remembrance, because there is no power and no safety in not remembering. Sometimes, we block certain memories because they are too traumatic or we don't know how to deal with them. But we think that we will stay safe if we don't remember who we are. But there is no safety in not remembering. Remember that. It doesn't make you more safe or secure or protected. Only when you remember your true power, you can be safe because you know how to work with it. The thing is, if you start to remember who you are, then you will activate eventually all of the 12 strands of DNA, and you will also kind of unplug from this other system that runs parallel to the collective grid of consciousness, which is sort of like it cannot actually do it, but it's sort of trying to trap certain lightworkers and starseeds who are not awakened or who are just awakening. But if you continue your ascension, if you continue remembering who you are, you'll be able to pass above that trapping system. You'll be able to get to that place, frequency-wise, where you are safe. That's why I say it's the only safe place to be when you remember who you are. Because otherwise you allow other energies to control you and you are not even aware of it, So that's why I invite you to start remembering. It's more important than you might think. And it will change your life. But back to the priests and priestesses. So since I was little, I could remember Atlantis, and I could also remember that I was training and initiating priests and priestesses, not only in Atlantis. This is something that I've been doing also not on this planet only, that I was doing before I came here as well. But back then it wasn't like who we call priests or priestesses, but here it was specifically those kind of souls. And it's beautiful because some of those people, actually quite many, are finding me again, and they gravitate towards my School of Remembrance, towards the Lightworker healing, Starseed healing, and priestess training. And so we kind of continue in this sacred work that we started long ago. That's what I want you to start realizing and remembering as well, that you continue something that has started before. So your life is not like, separate. Your life is not just one thing that's happening now and it doesn't have any consequences, or it doesn't have anything that would be influencing it. You cannot look at your life just like as a box. It's here and it has these edges and there is nothing beyond it, because there is so much. And when you give more space to that remembrance, it will start flowing to your consciousness. The Atlantean priests and priestesses, they had fully activated 12 strands of DNA. It was normal to have it. It was nothing special. In a way, we all had it. There was a time when we didn't have to die. We didn't have to be changing our bodies. And there was a time where we didn't go through a reincarnation. So you could call it that we knew how to be immortal. And this is another thing that priests and priestesses know how to do. Not all of the priesthood knew how to be immortal. But if this is something that resonates with you, give that memory more space in your life. Priests and priestesses, they were also masters when it came to working with crystals. That's the reason why so many of you might be gravitating towards using crystals and working with them, and it makes you feel good. And there's something more to crystals, because there is. What we did is that we were using the power grids made of crystals to enhance healing or enhance certain energies. We were also working with the crystalline grid of Earth. We were connected with the crystals that are stored in the Earth. Some of you may have been crystal keepers. So also the grid keepers, because if you are the keeper of the crystal, you are the keeper of the grid. So if crystals resonates with you, this might be why. Because if it resonates with you that you were an Atlantean priest or priestess and you feel drawn to crystals, it's because we understood how to use the technology of crystals. So we were the masters of using the crystal technology. We knew how to ascend. We knew how to be immortal. We knew how to keep, the body, energy, and mind in balance. So there was no space for illnesses and diseases. Not during the whole time of Atlantis, because it's been quite a long time thinking in the linear sense of time. So this was, before things started to go different way. We didn't have illnesses. We didn't have to be changing our bodies. We knew our purpose since we were born. There was no envy, there was no comparison. Because if you know what's your purpose since you are little, and that's the only thing you want to do, because this is how it feels when you know your purpose, you are actually not interested in anything else. So there is no space for comparing yourself to someone else, because you know what you are doing is the best thing for you and the most exciting thing for you to do. During the Atlantean times, we also knew how to help people to basically stay in touch with nature, how to use the ley lines and energy pathways that are around the earth. And we could use it for different purposes. Of course, there were different kinds of priests and priestesses. There were different groups of those people, depending what they focused on, what was their natural ability. So perhaps some were just focusing on crystals. Others were able to rebalance the body system of people. Other priests and priestesses, they were working with the ley lines and on what we could call technology nowadays, levitation and so on. Other priests and priestesses were masters in opening the heart and keeping it wide open. But all of the Atlantean priests and priestesses, they were living in Christ consciousness. This is very important. You can watch some other video I made on Christ consciousness. But the thing is, it's not something that is only linked to Jesus Christ, although he was the perfect embodiment of Christ consciousness. But it's something universal. And Atlantean priests and priestesses, they were the keepers of the Christ consciousness, of the divine masculine energy. And also, some of the priestesses were keepers of feminine Christ consciousness. They are different, those two, like the masculine feminine Christ consciousness and the feminine Christ consciousness are different in frequency and energy, but they are complementing each other. It's like yin and yang. So that's why perhaps some of you might not have been priests or priestesses, but you still gravitate towards certain sisterhoods and brotherhoods that are again forming themselves, because people start to remember you didn't necessarily have to be a priest or priestess, but you gravitate towards it because you want to awaken the masculine Christ consciousness or the feminine Christ consciousness within you. And being around people who actually were priests or priestesses helps you to tap into it. It really plugs you into that grid. So this is another important aspect of Atlantean priests and priestesses. Also, priests and priestesses, they were working in groups of 12 people. And then there was the 13th hidden aspect. And this has to do with sacred geometry and with the structure of universe. But if you gravitate towards number 12, or in some cases number 13, it's because something in you remembers the importance of this number. Some of the Atlantean priests and priestesses were also trained before they came to Earth in different star systems, in different planets, even within our solar system. Maybe some of you hold the remembrance of being trained in Venetian temples. And again, so if you think about priests and priestesses, there's every soul has different purpose. Every soul is kind of specialist in something else. Every soul is unique. And certain types of soul, they are something like what we could imagine as, having a sisterhood or brotherhood, and often they were mixed together, right? It wasn't only purely feminine or masculine, because there always needs to be balanced. But there are certain souls who, they've done this kind of work, what we are doing here on different planets. You just continue in something you started a long time ago because it's a part of who you are. And also, during Atlantis, as we know, things went south, quite literally. So there were also priests and priestesses, which basically they didn't have their heart consciousness, the Christ consciousness open. They were very aware, they were super intelligent, and we could say divine, but It was not aligned with integrity. It was not aligned with love, compassion. It was not aligned with Christ consciousness, because they also had the 12 strands of DNA active, but there were distortions within their DNA. There are certain rays within the DNA that didn't awaken fully. And so they were super intelligent, as I said, but they started misusing power. And the reason why things went south in Atlantis is not only because of the priests and priestesses, but this is where it started. And then, of course, it transferred into rest of society, right? It wasn't just something happening between priesthood. And we would have to go into history. That would be a really long video. But just what happened in Atlantis, as we know, these priests and priestesses, they started basically disconnecting those other strands of DNA because they wanted control, they wanted to manipulate. And what they wanted to manipulate mostly is the mind control. Crazy things were happening there, and maybe I'll write a book about it at some point. If you are interested, let me know. But the 12 strands started to disconnect, and of course we knew that this was going to happen. It didn't come as a surprise, and it didn't happen overnight. It was a long process, and what we did is that we hid this knowledge and wisdom of Ascension process of working with crystals, of the Christ consciousness, feminine Christ consciousness. We hid all those memories and knowledge and wisdom into crystals. So some of you can actually read this information from crystals. And there is a safe mechanism. If there is a person who is not supposed to read it, they will not be able to access it. On the other hand, if you were part of this group, you know how to access this information. But it will only happen after you've done some, what I call human work, right? Because you have to integrate the human self as well. You cannot skip it. The purpose of remembrance is not to skip or bypass something. You have to work with your mind. You have to work with your emotional body and do inner child work. You have to work with subconscious mind. You cannot skip these things. It doesn't matter how evolved you are. We all have to go through it because that's part of the deal of being on Earth. It needs to be integrated so it's not taking you out of balance. And then you start remembering. Then you can work with that information. So in that moment, when the time is right, you can access this information again. The information of Ascension is also stored in your DNA. There are different time capsules and light codes, key codes within your DNA. And if you are a priest or priestess who were aligned with Christ consciousness, you know how to access this information and bring it to people again. And this is a huge part of the work I do, because I committed to bringing this knowledge and remembrance back to Earth. I committed to build the school of remembrance for people who are ready to activate their DNA, who are ready to remember and then lead other people, then help other people, teach them, share the knowledge. It's not meant to be kept secret anymore. This changed in 2012. Until 2012, most of the priests and priestesses were living in complete or partial forgetfulness. In 2012, it changed, and we knew that we will start to remember who we are, and we will kind of continue and go beyond Atlantis, because Atlantis was not perfect. It's not about idealizing things there, because clearly certain things happened, took place, and we can learn from it and go beyond. So we knew that there will be time when we will be able to access this information again. The time came in 2012. That's the reason why since 2012 people are awakening like crazy, and it will continue. This is something that cannot be stopped. And if this resonates and you are part of this, then go within yourself, follow the resonance, go deeper, start remembering, start awakening this knowledge. You are part of this grand, process that is happening on Earth. You also remember something that is unique and needed. It's like we all hold a piece of puzzle. And when we put it together, we start to understand things. That's another thing I love about my work, because it allows me not only to work with my own memory, but also during the sessions, I see what other people remember, and putting these pieces of puzzle together is the greatest gift for me in this life. And if this resonates with you, I invite you to join the School of Remembrance, join the Lightworker Healing, and then you can continue with priest or priestess training. You'll see more information in the description box below. And thank you so much for watching.